Hi, I'm Tyler,
And I'm Danny.
and we're with Oregon Spinal Cord Injury Connection. In this video, we're going to talk all about brakes. We're going to cover how to adjust them on both a lightweight wheelchair and a standard folding wheelchair. The exact brakes on your wheelchair might look slightly different than the ones that we have here, but the principle of how to adjust them is going to be the same.
Brakes are really important because they hold your chair steady for transfers and when you're on uneven ground. If your chair is slipping after you've engaged the brakes, there are a few different reasons why that might be. If the air pressure is low in your tires, you may need to add air. If you've already done that and your chair is still slipping, you might need to adjust the brakes. On the contrary, if you're having a really hard time engaging the brakes may need to be adjusted to be slightly looser.
In order to adjust the brakes on a standard manual wheelchair, we need these wheels to be able to spin freely so that we can check the braking mechanism. The best way to do that is to make sure that the wheelchair is lifted by the rear axle here, and we can do that using a milk crate or a 5-gallon bucket, anything that lifts the frame of the wheelchair up high enough off of the ground that the wheels can spin. With the wheels spinning, we can engage the brake and check. We see that even when we have this lever engaged, there's not enough clamping force to do anything but slow down the tire a little bit. Before adjusting this, I'm going to take this wheel off. And for the purposes of the demonstration, I'm also going to remove this side guard and the cushion. The first thing I'm going to do is grab a roll of masking tape and mark the position of the brake as it sits right now. This way we have a reference point to go back to if you make a mistake and need to undo your work. With our reference point marked, we now need to decide how we want to adjust our brake. If the brake is feeling too loose, we need to move it back towards the back of the wheelchair. If there's too much clamping force or if it's hard to engage the lever, we're going to move it forwards towards the foot plate. In this case, since we didn't have enough clamping force, we're going to be moving this bracket backwards this direction. To do that, all I need for this particular wheelchair is a single 5mm Allen wrench, and there's 2 bolts here that hold this brake bracket onto the frame. I'll reach under the brake and loosen these 2 bolts until this mechanism is free to slide back and forth, like this. Using my reference point as a guide, I'm going to work in millimeter increments. With brake adjustments, small increments are all you need to do to make a pretty big change to the amount of braking force. Since this brake was super loose, I'm going to start by moving it 2 millimeters backwards. Once I have it adjusted where I want it, I can tighten up these bolts. And we're going to reinstall the wheel to check our work. Our wheel is reinstalled. Let's engage the brake lever. Everything feels great. That's now holding this wheel steady. And we have a nice amount of clamping force. We know that a wheelchair brake is properly adjusted when we have all 3 C's: clearance, clamping, and contact. The clearance that we're checking for is making sure that when the brake is not engaged, we can spin the wheel freely, and there's not going to be any debris or anything that gets caught in between the tire and the brake mechanism. This wheel is spinning nice and freely, so we're good on clearance. The second thing that we're checking for is clamping. How much force does it take to apply this lever? Different people with different levels of strength and hand function might need different amounts of clamping force here. This is somewhat personal preference as long as there's enough clamping force to make the wheel steady. So be sure to check with the person actually using the wheelchair to make sure that the amount of clamping force is adequate. The final C is contact. When the brake is engaged, is there nice contact between the braking bar and the actual tire itself? In this case, The braking bar is sitting nice and perpendicular to the tire. We have a nice solid amount of clamping contact, and we have good clearance. We have all three C's, and this brake is fully adjusted. When adjusting the brakes on a standard folding chair like this one, there's only one bolt that holds this braking mechanism to the frame, and it can only move in one direction, forward or back. Using those same principles, we're either going to slide this mechanism forward if we want less clamping force, or slide it back towards the backrest if we want more clamping force. There's a single bolt. In this case, I'm using a 7/16" wrench on the inside of this brake mechanism that I'm just going to loosen a couple times. Now this mechanism is free to slide forward and backwards. There's also some very helpful little indicator notches on the brake mechanism itself. So once we have this set, we have established a baseline for ourselves. I'm going to put it at notch number 3. Tighten the brake to the frame. And then check my work. I have a nice amount of clamping force here, but I think that there could be just a little bit more to hold this wheel more securely. So I'm going to loosen this bolt. And slide it backwards to notch 4. I'll retighten that 7/16 nut and test my work. That feels great. There's an adequate amount of clamping force that should hold this person steady when performing any kind of transfers.
Thanks for watching our video. We hope you found it helpful. OSCI's mission is to ensure everyone in Oregon who sustains a spinal cord injury has the care and community they need to thrive. If you're newly injured or you don't feel like you're thriving, we encourage you to connect with one of our community health workers by emailing us at contact@oregonsci.org.
For more information about our programs, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook. Visit our website, OregonSCI.org, to check out our upcoming events, including our in-person wheelchair maintenance workshops and our community meetups.